And welcome to Buffalo Rumblings Live. My name is Matt Warren. I'm joined today by Dan Kadar of SBNation.com, Mocking the Draft on Twitter. So Dan, quick question. Do you have your Jimmy Johnson trade value chart ready to go for our little hangout tonight?
I do not. I don't have it memorized. I mean, I can look it up real quick, but I have a general idea of how it works.
Well, I mean, I think we'll have to. I mean, we don't need Jimmy Johnson's trade value chart necessarily, but the Bills made a pretty big, bold trade at the top of the draft, moving up from number 9 to number 4, giving up a 2015 first-round pick, which means a lot of Bills fans aren't going to be reading your website a year from now. Well, 9 months from now. Leading up to the 2015 draft. Do you think that it was a good trade-up? Do you think Sammy Watkins is a player that is worth trading a future first-round pick and change for?
It's risky. I mean, if you look at how first-year rookie wide receivers have played, are you going to get A.J. Green and Julio Jones, who were around 1,000 yards each and, 6, 8, 10 touchdowns, somewhere in that range? You're going to get Michael Crabtree, who was not. So you're really, bargaining your future against Sammy Watkins pushing you over the edge in 2014. And he's a very, very good player. And Doug Whaley certainly wanted him a whole lot if he was willing to move all the way up to number 1 to go get him, if you believe the reports that are out there. But I think anytime you give up a first-round pick in the next year's draft, you're really making a big gamble on that player putting you over the top. And is Sammy Watkins truly the guy that's going to do that? I'm not quite so sure.
Well, that was going to be the question I asked you. What might the Bills see in Sammy Watkins from his college days that make them think he's the guy to put them over the top? Because if they don't get to the playoffs this year, or at least make a run at the playoffs, there's going to be a lot more questions than answers with Sammy Watkins, with E.J. Manuel, with Doug Whaley, and Doug Marrone. So what about his college game might make them think that he's the guy that could put them over the top?
Yeah. When you look at him compared to the other wide receivers that I mentioned earlier, Green and Jones in particular, I don't think he's good as either of them, solely because they were bigger players. And, he's in that 6'1"-ish range. But if you compare him to like Michael Crabtree or Des Bryant, I think he's better than those two. So I think they probably saw what they consider to be the best offensive skill player in the draft this year with Watkins. I mean, he is a wide receiver, but he can play inside, he can play outside. You can do gadget plays with him. If they want, they can use him on special teams and he'll be good. So he's very versatile. I think he was worth the top 5 pick, but the cost, though, you can't ignore what they had to give up to go get him.
Yeah, and I think that's the question most Bills fans are asking. I wrote the day after that trade that kind of what you said. They loved him enough to go up and get him. And whether you agree with it or not, the fact that Doug Whaley had the stones to make that trade and say, hey, I love this guy, I'm going to go for it, and we're going to get the guy we really, really want, the number 1 guy on our board. I liked that he did it. I don't know if I love Sammy Watkins. I mean, I didn't watch any of his games, but I didn't watch any college football for that matter. But I don't know if he's going to be the guy that puts him over the top. I just love that Doug Whaley was like, that's the guy that's going to go take us over the top, and he went for him. You talked a little bit about some gadget plays. From what I've been reading up on him, they used him a lot in, say, the screen game, whether the short passes to the outside or even when he was in the wing position. What skills can he take from his time at Clemson and bring to the NFL right now to contribute this year? You said he doesn't have the size. Well, what does he have that's going to help this team this year?
Yeah, I don't know if you watched a lot of Minnesota Vikings games last season, but they ended up doing with Cordero Patterson where they just figured out a way to get him the ball, whether it was on a handoff even, little dinky plays out of the backfield, stuff like that. And Sammy Watkins is an incredibly elusive player. He's smooth, as they say, in the open field. So he knows how to make people miss, and that to me that's a very good trait to have as a wide receiver who isn't 6'5", 6'4", and I think from that standpoint, if Buffalo is willing to be creative with him, and we'll see, you can do some unique things with him like that out of the backfield and on screens and jet sweeps and end arounds even he's very good at. So if they're willing to be creative with him, I think they can get their money's worth, so to say, out of what they gave up for him.
Yeah, that's one of the things you mentioned, smooth, and that's one of the words that Doug Marrone used during the rookie minicamp this week. I'm trying to pull up the exact quote from him right here. Something about like if he wasn't that way, we'd be really pissed. I think he used the term pissed. Like, yeah, here it is. He's a first-round draft pick. If he came out here and dropped 5 balls and fell down 5 or 10 times, we'd be pissed and crying. So that's
Sure.
what, Doug Marrone, classy guy. So a lot of people that were at rookie minicamp have said that Sammy Watkins was, of course, head and shoulders above the rest of the players on the field, and were they surprised by that? And that was pretty much his response. Dan Rock wants to know, writing in our comments section, as a Browns fan, how did you feel about the trade up to 9 and then the subsequent trade up for Justin Gilbert? Let's talk about the first trade. How did you feel about the Browns trading out of that spot with the Bills?
Well, I'll be honest with you. You guys know I'm a Browns fan probably, and but I have a great amount of respect for the Bills. I always tell Brian Galliford, if the Browns go away again, I'm going to become a Bills fan. So I have a lot of respect for the Bills. But when I found out that they were giving up a first-round pick in next year's draft, I may have elicited a scream or a holler here inside my house. So I was excited as a Browns fan to know what they were getting back for the 4th pick in the draft. I was still a little surprised what Buffalo gave up. I mean, a first-round pick next year is a lot.
Well, it's going to be a low first-round pick, like in
Sure.
30, 31, 30.
Well, according to Bovada, it might be the 4th pick in the draft. I'm sorry to say. Yeah.
Bovada.
Well, what do they know?
What do they know?
Who Bovada? What even is that?
Well, here's the thing. The Bills haven't picked in the top 4. They picked in the top 4 twice during this playoff drought. And I think that's the biggest problem. And I wanted to talk to you about this because I've had a feeling that you would have an opinion on it. The Bills' biggest problem in this playoff drought, and even before the playoff drought, was that they were always picking 10, 11, 14, number 9. They were never picking in that top spot, and when they were, it was the year that Cam Newton goes 1 overall, and then they're left with Marcel Darius, who was a slam dunk. Most people had him as the number 3 guy on the board pretty much everywhere. And so you take a defensive tackle, and before that, the highest pick was Mike Williams, the tackle from Texas, who flamed out gloriously. Right. So it's like, you never get the top-end talent, and then you just keep getting these guys that fall to number 10 and number 11 and number 12. And at least here they're trading up to get one of the elite talents in the draft. And I think at some point you do need to, well, a lot of people say bottom out to get to the top of the draft. But the Bills have never been able to do that. They've always been 7-9, 7-9, 8-8. And so I think at least this does that artificially for them. It gets them into that top upper echelon of players. What are your thoughts on the Bills' kind of middling draft picks over the last 15 years?
Well, I like that general theory that you described, considering that they have their quarterback that they think is the guy already in place with E.J. Manuel. If they didn't have a quarterback they were already developing, I would question it even more. But since they really started that clock already, they already have their left tackle. You could argue they have a good pass rush already. So they have those core tenets in place you need to be a playoff contending team. So I guess it stands to reason they thought they're only a good playmaker away from making that jump. So, you're right. They've had those 8, 9, 10, 11 kind of picks, and we've seen where that's gotten them. Jarris Byrd was a very good player, but where is he now?
He's in New Orleans.
Right, exactly.
For the record.
Right. Stephon Gilmore is a very good player, but what is a really good cornerback going to do for you in the NFL? I mean, he's going to play good defense, but how many wins is he going to get you? So it's such a risk. I understand it, I guess. Still a risk, but man up, I suppose. I don't know.
Well, yeah, even in the draft room, they looked like that's what they were doing. They just looked like they were manning up and taking their medicine to some degree. Ron from New Mexico wants to know, is Watkins at home in the slot? If the Bills send receivers on each side on deep out routes and Manuel hits Watkins on a slant, is he a threat to take it to the end zone?
Yeah.
Does he play in the slot a lot, or does he usually play on the line in the X or Z?
Clemson moved him in and out because they had DeAndre Hopkins there a couple of years ago. So they could move him in and out. He had some timing issues moving to the outside last season, at least to start the year. But once he got it down, he was fine. I think he's comfortable at either, though, especially if he's not asked to do a lot of complicated stuff out of the slot. If he's doing the stuff across the middle, if he's doing slants and making guys miss, he's very good in that role. And like I said, it's because he can make people miss after the catch, and he gets up to speed real fast. He was actually one of the last scouting reports I wrote for the site, and you take a break from watching these guys from when you see them in December and January from when you watch them in March and April, and you kind of forget to a degree just how good they are. And Watkins was one of those guys where you see him catch a difficult pass, and the way he gets upfield in such a hurry, it's impressive. So, supreme athlete is the best way to describe him, I guess. And yeah, he is a guy who, if you get the ball in his hand, he can threaten to score anytime.
Yeah, to go off a little point that you made, not necessarily about his speed. A lot of folks have talked about his speed, but Doug Whaley has made mention several times since they drafted him about his body control and the ability to make those tough catches. And he's certainly making a lot of tough catches in rookie minicamp with that Ohio State quarterback. Can't remember his
Kenny
name.
Guyton.
Yeah, there you go. Spraying it all over the field. So the body control was an issue that Doug Whaley said when he went to his pro day, they saw him make something like 10 catches with great body control. He's like, I don't need to be here for anymore. We know it. We love him. That's all we need to see. Zen Bills, staying on Sammy Watkins, wants to know what would be a reasonable expectation for his rookie season, right around 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns? Could he go higher or lower?
Yeah, I think Julio Jones had 959 yards his rookie season, and I know that because I may have been looking it up just before we went on the air. I don't happen to know that off the top of my head.
Yes, Zen wrote that in the article, or in his comment, and AJ Green had 1,057.
Okay, somewhere right around there, I think would be suitable.
He's going to be the number one wide receiver. At least that's the thought going in now that they've traded Stevie Johnson.
So if he gets 60 receptions, between 6 and 8 touchdowns, just around 1,000 yards, I think it's fine. Just because that's about what we should expect from a good rookie wide receiver. And these guys aren't going to blow it up for 1,400 yards as a rookie. It's just not going to happen, I don't think. I mean, if Sammy Watkins does, great, but I think the expectation should be right around that 1,000-yard range. And, I don't know what that means for his fantasy football numbers, but that's what I would expect in the real world.
Right. Sergeant Major Thor asks, why do the Bills get so much crap from the media for trading up for Watkins? He cites the Falcons trade up for Julio Jones. Now, the Falcons had to go up from somewhere in the 20s into the top 10 to get Jones, so it's going to be a little bit different. But, I mean, even looking back at, say, the Cornelius Bennett trade in the late 80s for the Buffalo Bills, they gave up 2 firsts, I think 2 seconds, and a 1,000-yard rusher in that trade to get Cornelius Bennett. And so I don't know if it's as big of a trade-up as people are saying. What do you think? Why are they getting so much crap for that trade-up?
Yeah,
his words, not mine. Crap.
No, I'm probably one of the people that dished some of the crap about it, only because when you looked at the Falcons trade, they were at 22, and they moved up to 6. And they did it because they were a known playoff team. They were a pretty sure thing. I mean, I know they fell apart last year, but after that draft, they were a pretty sure thing to win that division, at least make the playoffs. And you just can't say that about the Bills, unfortunately. I mean, maybe we will again, here shortly if, Tom Brady just falls apart and whatever else. But that's the reason why there was so much doubt about the trade, or why there is, just because the Bills, better than I, they haven't made the playoffs in a real long time. So
I was in high school.
Right, and we're not young anymore, Matt.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
hey,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Just call them like I see them. But that's why there's some questions about that trade, because, like I said, Las Vegas is projecting the Bills to have the fourth worst record in the league. They haven't made the playoffs in forever, so that's why there's doubt about it. I mean, I'm hesitant to compare things to the Cornelius Bennett trade too, because that was 28 years ago or something.
Yeah, I want to say 1987. Yeah, because then they drafted Thurman in '88 with the second round pick because they didn't have a first round pick.
Yeah, so if you can follow it up and draft a Thurman Thomas type impact player next year in the second round, no one will ever remember. But
yeah, if you guys could get a Hall of Famer,
no big deal. Yeah, whatever. But that's the reason why there's doubt about it, because there isn't an expectation that the Bills are going to make a huge leap next season.
And then Ron wanted to point out that the last time the Bills traded away a future first-round pick, it was for Jonathan Paul Lossman.
Oh, God. That's, good luck.
The Manziel spot, number 22 overall.
Yeah, the Brady Quinn spot, the Brandon Wheaton spot.
The spot where quarterbacks go to die. First-round quarterbacks go to die.
Yeah, don't think I don't know it.
Oh, a Browns fan? I can't imagine how you possibly wouldn't know it. Here's the last one from Ron. As a Browns fan, what are your thoughts on them dropping from 4, where you could have had Watkins or Mack or Evans, to 9 and getting a cornerback? Yeah, there you go.
Well, what the Browns ended up doing, taking a cornerback in Justin Gilbert, you just kind of have to trust Mike Pettin, basically. I mean, that was his pick, more or less. He's the one that wants to press corners, as you guys know, in his scheme. So, I'm not the biggest Justin Gilbert fan. As a totally biased Browns fan, though, I'm going to say I understand why he did it. I have my doubts, I suppose, but I get it. Why they didn't take a wide receiver, you can point out things like, Sammy Watkins got hit for drugs at Clemson once, so maybe they wouldn't want to take him because they fear it might turn into a trend in the NFL, like may have with Josh Gordon. Why not take Mike Evans out of Texas A&M then? Maybe they just don't like him. Maybe they didn't like his personality. He's a very laid-back kid, so but knowing in the back of your mind that you can pair Evans with Johnny Football. Yeah, well, it's enticing, but they still don't have a second cornerback. So, if I'm going to buy in with Mike Pettin, I have to buy in them picking a cornerback that high. So, last time I questioned a cornerback getting picked higher than I thought he should, it was Stephon Gilmore. So, maybe Justin Gilbert will be another Stephon Gilmore, actually. Who knows? I'm trying to figure out if that's a good or a bad thing for Justin Gilbert. Anyway, moving on to Kouandjio, the Bills' second-round pick. So, wait, the Bills actually traded down for this pick, didn't they? I believe so. Yeah. Yeah, the Bills traded out of number 44, out of 41 overall to get 44 overall. According to their Bills website, they had 3 guys on their board, and there was 3 picks in front of them that they didn't think would all go against them. So they made the trade, picked up an extra 5th rounder that we'll talk about a little bit later today, and end up getting a first-round talent by all accounts in Cyrus Kouandjio. Can you just go over a little bit the knee injury that forced him down or completely off of some teams' draft boards? Yeah, well, first of all, I think the Kouandjio pick really defines what this draft was for Doug Whaley. It's going to be a complete boom or a complete bust of a draft, because that's what Kouandjio is with his knee. I think he's a very good player, but he had a knee surgery out of high school, I believe, and his knee is arthritic. I don't think he's going to dispute that. And it came up at the combine, and I think 8 teams failed him medically. It was, and it's one of those things where I don't remember if we talked about this last time I was on, but the NFL at the combine, they grade injuries on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is this is a short-term, almost nothing kind of injury, and 5 is this guy is going to have a short career because this injury is just so severe. He's probably not going to be worth picking. Kouandjio got a 4 on that scale, and that a 4 is kind of defined as it's an injury that may have effects on his career long term. In the short term, he should be fine, but in the long term is the question. But to me, even with that in mind, if you get 5 good years out of Cyrus Kouandjio, and I think that's very possible, and like I said, I think he's a very good player, no one's going to remember. I mean, in 5 years, he could leave in free agency, and no one's going to say, why did we pick this guy? So if he plays 5 good years and that's for him, I don't think people should say it's a bad pick in the end. So that's the word on his knee. I know that's why he fell in the draft. I know that's why some teams probably took him off their draft board, but I think the Bills got good value with him in the second round.
Well, it reminds me a lot of a guy we already talked about that fell to the second round, Thurman Thomas, who set rushing records at Oklahoma State and then had a knee injury late in his career and fell down draft boards. Now, his knee apparently checked out, and the Bills drafted him in the second round. And, I mean, there's lots of stories from the Bills draft room of guys standing on tables saying, you need to get this guy. And, I mean, maybe that was like that with Kouandjio. We're probably not going to know for a while, but as you said, it reeks kind of a short-term thing. Like, well, we traded up to get Sammy Watkins. We gave away next year's first-round pick. We need a guy that's got a lot of talent. And I think when we talk about another Bills draft pick coming up here, I think we're going to say that same conversation. It's just I'm not going to say the word desperation because I don't believe that Russ Brandon and Doug Whaley are desperate, but it reeks of guys who really, really want to end this playoff streak, whether it's to save their jobs or not. I mean, with a new owner, that's the speculation that they were going all in on the 2014 season, specifically to save their jobs when a new owner comes in. And so they're going for guys with a lot of question marks, whether it's, Sammy Watkins, boom or bust, or Kouandjio, boom or bust. You're going to hear that a lot about a lot of the Bills players that they signed. It's a very interesting conversation. Dr. Andrews cleared his knee. Does that mean anything to you?
No.
I mean, I don't know. It's a legit question. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I guess because he's Dr. James Andrews, but when has he ever said something really bad about someone? If you think about it. So it's always the surgery went great, the recovery is going ahead of schedule, and that sort of stuff. So I guess I buy into it a little bit just because he's a doctor and I'm not, but
he's me and I have it,
Right. Those little minute details, but I don't know. Like I said though, I think it's a fine pick. I think Kouandjio is going to be a good player.
He's a massive human.
Short term, he's enormous, and I think he's a better athlete than people think too. So I like it. I haven't been shy about loving Cordy Glenn as left tackle. I like him quite a lot, and I really think Kouandjio is a good fit in the style, across from him. Very, very similar, mountainous kind of, they can really run block well, probably better than people expect as a pass blocker. So I like Kouandjio, at least in the short term.
Schooled You, one of our users, asks, how will he handle speed rushers in the NFL? Now, he was playing left tackle at Alabama, correct?
Correct.
So he's used to handling speed rushers in the SEC.
Yeah, he's inconsistent. I mean, when you watch, if you go back and watch the national championship game last year, he got picked apart with speed. But he was good against other guys. I mean, really, to me, any offensive tackle who is that kind of build and that kind of size, that really great first step quickness is going to get them. And two things: he's not going to see that as much at right tackle, I don't think. And he did well against some of those guys. Great against Kentucky's Zadarius Smith, for instance. That's a defensive end I really like for next year's draft, and he has some speed and some power, and Kouandjio manhandled him. So that is a question with Kouandjio handling speed. I think it'll be a little lessened playing right tackle.
Yeah, the picture, my favorite picture so far of Kouandjio and all of my, research on him. There's a picture of the Alabama kicker celebrating a made kick. I know that might surprise you in and of itself, but celebrating a made kick, and Kouandjio's like wrapping his arms around him, and it's just like he could touch his own shoulders and not even touch this kicker. This guy he engulfs him. It's hilarious.
There's a GIF of Kouandjio you guys need to look out for, and it's against this Kentucky player Zadarius Smith, and he head slaps him like he's Deacon Jones.
We've seen it, yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, that's my absolute favorite, probably clip from the last couple of years in college football. He just mollywops him and just knocks him completely out. So I love that kind of thing about an offensive lineman.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah,
I found it. I'll post it in the comment section here. While you answered this question from Dude Man G, do you believe Kouandjio's talk about winning and desire to make those who passed on him pay? Because that was one of the cool things that he did right when he started. When he was drafted, he's on stage. He's like, "I'm proud to be a Buffalo," which we'll get into later, I guess. Yeah. But in Buffalo, not a Buffalo, but anyway, he really talked about winning and having kind of this chip on his shoulder. Do you think that that's going to matter in the next level?
I don't know. I mean, every player is going to say something along those lines if they think they fell in the draft further than they did. I mean, Johnny Manziel, to go back to the Browns, and not to do that too much here, but he said the other day, I got passed over 21 times. How should I feel about it? So I think that's something any player should feel. Whether or not it's actually real for them, only time will tell. Obviously Tom Brady likes to tell people getting picked in the 6th round, really motivated him or pissed him off, whatever he says. And I think you could say that about for the guy who was picked after Tom Brady. He probably had the same mindset too. So whether or not it comes, true, it's something we'll find out. And I think if that's what a guy needs to motivate him, hey, whatever works for you, man.
Mm-hmm. Sergeant Major Thor asked, the Patriots get kudos for selecting a defensive lineman with 2 blown-up knees in the first round. How do you explain that?
You got me. I think that's one of the riskiest picks of the first round. Dominic Easley's obviously a very good player, but like the guy said, he hasn't blown his knee out twice. We don't know how he's going to come back from it again this time. And to me, not as concerning, but it's a thing that made me scratch my head at the combine when Dominic Easley told me he likes cartoons more than he likes football, and that he's never watched a full NFL game all the way through.
Oh man!
So yeah, that stuck out to me almost as much as the knee stuff. But yeah, I don't know how the Patriots get universally praised for the draft that they had, because I didn't think it was that great.
Yeah, well, the Patriots always get slobbered all over, and we always think that they do a crappy job drafting. Look at their wide receivers that they've drafted in the last, 10 years.
Right.
I mean, that's all I got to do. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. You touched a nerve.
Screw you, Patriots. No.
We don't like the Patriots. All right, let's see here. We got people debating whether it's GIF or GIF. It is clearly a GIF. I don't care what the guy that created the first one says. Okay, this is the internet. We make decisions, not them.
That's right.
All right, let's move to the Bills' 3rd round pick. A guy that immediately when he was picked, I sent you a quick Twitter message saying, "Hey, how come this guy is the Bills' 3rd round pick at 90? I'm looking it up right now, or 73.
73?
73. He's picked number 73 in the draft, and he's not in your top 200, Dan. What's going on with Preston Brown from Louisville?
Here's my disclaimer about where I tell people this isn't what I do for a living, and I can only watch so many players, and
Oh,
sometimes guys fall through the cracks, and you know how it goes. But no, I don't know. I think Preston Brown's okay. He is a guy we probably had in that top 200 at the start of the season.
you did.
Okay.
You also had him there. I think it was January or February, right around the Super Bowl. He was in like 175-ish range, something like
well,
that.
here's the next part where I blame it on my draft partner Matthew Fairburn, who
He's
can't
not
come
here.
on here right now and defend himself. No, he's just a guy who is probably a two-down linebacker, and I think that's okay. We probably put a little bit more value on the other linebackers who we think can play all three downs. So that's why he got pushed back a little bit. I don't think there's a lot of potential that's untested with him, and it's always a consequence of writing about the NFL draft. You're always assuming that there's potential there that can be harnessed in the right situation. And Brown is just a guy you don't see a ton of natural potential with, because to me he's not a superstar athlete. He doesn't have great size. To me, he didn't. He never blew me away with his instincts, and maybe I'm end up watching a guy like that and comparing him to someone like Ryan Shazier or C.J. Mosley, and maybe that's not fair. So,
well, compare him to, say, Brandon Spikes, the guy he's probably going to be asked to back up and ultimately replace.
I think it's a very good comparison, actually, because Spike, I think, is a two-down linebacker as well, and I think that really sets the tone for what the Bills want to do with their linebackers on defense. Moving Alonso to the outside, you have a thumper in the middle with Spikes now and Brown in the future. I think the Bills get the benefit of the doubt because I question the Kiko Alonso pick too, and obviously we've seen how that played out. So they get the benefit of the doubt on that one, and maybe I'll be wrong, but I just see a guy who is a two-down linebacker, and I don't put a ton of value in that.
Well, one of the emphasis points that the Bills put this entire offseason was getting guys that could contribute on special teams, and Brown's certainly going to do that. CNY78 asks, do either of the Bills' drafted linebackers stand a chance at starting at Sam over Keith Rivers? And I think Brown might have the best chance of that. Maybe you disagree with me and you think, what's his name? Why can't I remember it? Randall Johnson might, the 7th-round pick. But
yeah.
Do you think that he has the range to play strong side linebacker in the Bills' 4-3 defense?
I think it's questionable. I think, to me, he's a between the tackles kind of player. If I wanted to tell you something about Randall Johnson, I'd be lying, other than what I looked up about his numbers. I'll just be quite honest. I don't watch a lot of Florida Atlantic games unless I really need to. I think T.Y. Hilton went to Florida International, but it just didn't get to Randall Johnson. So I couldn't tell you if they're better than Keith Rivers, because at the same time, Keith Rivers is one of my all-time misses as a prospect. We talked about this last time, I think, who are some of the misses that I've had, and he's certainly one of them. Like, I went so far as to friend Keith Rivers on Facebook leading up to that year's draft. I liked him so much. So,
did he accept your friend request?
Oh, he did, of course. I mean,
are you guys still friends on Facebook? Maybe you could get us into the Bills linebacker core.
Yeah. I think he might have abandoned Facebook. I'll look and let you know. But
right. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love those USC teams from back then. But whether or not those guys can replace him, I think it will be an open competition, just because I don't think Rivers has done anything in his career to stop that from happening. So I just don't think Brown has quite the range. But again, I might be wrong on the guy.
Okay. Ross Cockrell from
Yes.
Duke, the football powerhouse Duke.
Mm-hmm.
From all accounts, he's going to end up playing outside at the cornerback position and not on the inside, so he's probably going to be the top backup. to say Leos McKelvin and the aforementioned Stephon Gilmore. What can you tell us about Cockrell in his time at Duke University?
Yeah, I think we actually talked about him a fair amount last time I was on here. I said
we talked about all the pre-draft visitors, and of course, so far we're 4 for 4 on pre-draft visitors. They had Sammy Watkins, Cyrus Kouandjio, Preston Brown, and Ross Cockrell. Now that streak's going to end after this pick, but that's why we talked about him so much, is the Bills leaned heavily on pre-draft visitors, and so as the draft goes on, you kept an eye, a special eye on them, and then of course it came up. So tell me about his time at Duke.
Yeah, if anyone wants to watch one single game of his, just watch the bowl game against Texas A&M. He handled himself well against Mike Evans. Cockrell is a press cover guy to the fullest. I mean, he gets physical at the line of scrimmage, and that's what I like about him. He's not afraid to push guys around. He's going to get grabby with them every now and again, but he can press him at the line, and then he can turn and run with him too. He's not the best playmaker. I don't think he's going to get his hands on a lot of passes, but he can definitely disrupt timing. He can tackle well. He can do all those kinds of physical things the right way. So he's a guy I like quite a bit, and I wouldn't be shocked if 2 or 3 years from now we're talking about him as a starter for the Bills.
Oh, that's good. The Bills then traded their first 5th-round pick to the Philadelphia Eagles to obtain Bryce Brown, the speedy running back. Excuse me. Why did he fall a couple of years ago when he was initially in the draft pool?
Yeah, off-field issues. I mean, I think he transferred from Miami to Tennessee, or Tennessee to Miami, or say he transferred all around basically in college, and he was a blue chip recruit out of high school and just didn't really live up to it in college. So, he went from Kansas State, I think, to somewhere to Kansas State. I don't know. There was all these big BCS schools that he was on, and he just never played up to the hype. And then he entered the draft early, and he just happened to look good a few times for the Eagles, and you finally see why he was so highly considered. So,
was that a bad trade?
No, I mean, it's a 4th-round pick, so it's okay. 5th-round pick, even better then. My question is, though, what does that tell C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson if they're willing to give up an asset to bring in a veteran at the same position?
Well, so it tells them that the NFL stands for not for long, and they both have 1 year left on their contracts.
Right. So I think Bryce Brown's fine, though. I don't think you're ever going to expect him to be the lead running back, but I think he's solid. If he can hold on to the ball, I think he has fumble issues.
Yeah, that was one of the rubs that was against him in Philadelphia. All right, well, after they traded down in the 2nd round, they picked up an extra 5th-round pick and used it to select Cyril Richardson, guard from Baylor. Now, another massive human being, awards coming out of his ears from his offensive line play. How did such a decorated offensive lineman fall to the 5th round in the Buffalo Bills?
Because at the Senior Bowl, he got knocked on his ass a lot. He got pushed around at the Senior Bowl. He's another guy like Kouandjio, where he's going to be a boomer bust player, I think. And we'll probably get to another one of those guys later if we go all the way to the 7th round with the Bills.
Well, we will.
So, yeah. I mean, he got. So Cyril Richardson got pushed back a lot at the Senior Bowl, like he was on roller skates. He's not much as a pass blocker. He's really not good against speed rushers on the inside. Stunts are going to give him trouble. But if you get him in there to power block against the run, I think he's going to be okay.
So when he
I don't think he should have. Yeah, I don't think he should have been all the way in the 5th round, but that happens.
So when he got knocked on his keister, it was in pass pro, not run blocking.
It was both, actually.
Okay.
I'm trying to think who. I know Aaron Donald, I think, got him a couple times with that. So you're talking about the 13th pick in the draft. So it's a little understandable, but Boy, his Senior Bowl though was real bad.
I mean, he went. It's not like he was in rinky-dink Conference USA. I mean, he was at
Right.
Baylor. He was playing against big-time competition. Why didn't we see this before his Senior Bowl week?
I think we saw glimpses of it every now and again, but the Baylor offense, the way it's set up to get rid of the ball quickly, it kind of lends itself to not having offensive linemen be exposed. I mean, we saw Jason Smith, the offensive tackle there, who went number 2 overall to the Rams. We didn't really see him get exposed at Baylor, but when he got drafted, here were all these issues that we weren't aware of. We just saw this guy who should be a very good athletic offensive tackle. So I think the way the Baylor offensive line is set up, it kind of masks their talent to a degree. It can be deceiving, but I still don't think Richardson should have fallen to the 5th round. I thought he was more of a early 4th, late 3rd round kind of player.
Just to correct a mistake I made before, Dan Rock wrote this in the comment section. Bryce Brown was traded for a 4th rounder that could become a 3rd rounder based on a lot of different things that I'm not going to get into here.
Yeah.
But I said 5th rounder before, and I was wrong. Okay. So, again, moving right in our order here, Randall Johnson, Florida Atlantic. Do you know anything about him?
I think he ran a 4.62 40 at his pro day.
Yep.
I think he ran a 4.02 recone or something, maybe.
I don't even have that. Sorry.
No, that sounds ridiculous. No, Gil Brandt of NFL.com had some numbers on him. But that's quite frankly all I know. I know the Dolphins were looking at him too. How about that? He's
an athletic linebacker. Brian Galliford of BuffaloRumblings.com says he projects as a strong side linebacker in the Bills' defense. There you go. I keep forgetting to do the reset. We're talking with Dan Kadar from SBNation.com. He's our resident draft expert at the mothership here at SB Nation. So we had him on before the draft, and now we're having him on after the draft to just kind of talk about some people's college careers and things like that, which leads us to Seantrel Henderson.
Yeah.
Classic boomer bust pick. I mean, national writers are out there saying that he didn't even earn the right to be drafted, but he's got a first-round talent pedigree.
Yeah.
Talk to us about Seantrel Henderson.
Well, he's 6'8", so there's something to say about that as an offensive lineman. I don't know. Sometimes you see those guys get picked up and they turn into something, and sometimes you see them turn into nothing.
But it's not like he's no talent. Yeah. I mean, he's not Mike Jasper coming in. It's like the most raw, unmolded piece of clay, but he's 400 pounds and can, do flips and stuff like that. I mean, this guy has a lot of talent. Why did he fall to the 7th round?
Because he seems to enjoy drugs a whole lot. Because he has back problems. I think he quit at Miami once, and they brought him back. So
Didn't he do that in his pro day too, or was it a private workout or something?
Yeah, you're right. He quit at Miami's pro day. Obviously very talented. Whether or not he turns into something, I'm trying to remember the guy that the Baltimore Ravens picked up, who was kind of like him, a giant offensive tackle with what looks to be all of the skill in the world, just not all the desire. I want to say Taj Reed, maybe. I think they picked him in the supplemental draft. Trying to remember now, but it's failing me. But it's to me, it's worth a risk with the 7th round pick. And if you can turn him into something, great. If not, it was only a 7th round pick, so no big deal.
Yeah, I'm down with that. The Bills obviously tried to get much bigger on the offensive line, and they have achieved that. Whether they got better remains to be seen. There was a good question here. I'm trying to find it now so I can give credit to the person that asked it. Well, here's one. Sergeant Major Thor asked, if Henderson was an Eagle Scout, honor student, and Catholic altar boy, where would he have been drafted?
That's assuming he doesn't have back problems, I guess.
Keep the back problems. Let's just
keep the back problems.
Take the character issues off the table. Leave everything else.
Okay. Probably 3rd round, because he was still a right tackle at Miami, and there's already a little bit less value at that. You throw in the back problems, and if it pushed Kouandjio, a left tackle, into the second round, it stands to reason it should push a right tackle into the third. In that kind of scenario where there are no questions about his desire or his, liking of marijuana, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, probably in the late area of the top 100, I would say.
TC Miller 30 asks, what are the odds that Henderson outplays Kouandjio in the short term?
It's possible because he's talented. It's not possible because he might not have the drive. So it's all going to come down to how much Seantrel Henderson wants to play. If he wants to play, he's a good player. If he doesn't want to play, he's terrible. And it's always one or the other with him. It's not he's doing just all right. So I think it is possible, and I would be surprised, but not blown away, I guess.
Can Henderson play left tackle?
Maybe in a pinch. Maybe if he studies really what Cordy Glenn does, and see what makes him successful as a left tackle, maybe. But I think you're more likely to see Kouandjio at left tackle than Seantrel Henderson.
Okay, that was a question from Dan Rock. All right, so going through all of those picks, including the trades and everything like that, what grade did you give the Bills in your draft grades that you put out the next day?
I think I gave them a C+.
And why would you give the Bills such a low, terrible grade?
Because they gave up a first-round pick in next year's draft. And it's really like I've been saying, it's really a boom bust kind of draft class from top to bottom, really. Other than, I think Watkins is a pretty sure thing. I think Brown is you kind of know what you're going to get out of him, and I kind of doubt how much you're going to get out of him. So if you combine all that kind of stuff, that's why I didn't give it a better grade.
Okay. Just a quick aside, because you mentioned the trades. Joe P. asks, is the draft value chart outdated, the Jimmy Johnson trade value chart?
I think the Jimmy Johnson's draft value chart is a good starting point. It's a good way to gauge general value in a trade, but things like need are always going to trump the value chart. Things like the actual picks you have available are always going to trump that. So the trade value chart also, I don't think it doesn't take into account the value of a next year's pick or the lack of value. A pick next year is never going to be worth more than a pick this year. So that's why you see a second-round pick get traded for a first-round pick and so on. So I think the trade value chart is a good jumping off point, but I don't think it's a definitive kind of piece of whatever that teams may use now.
Did the Bills wants to know if the Stevie Johnson trade that the Bills made to pick up a future fourth rounder, enter into your grade at all?
No, it didn't. Only because it was a fourth-round pick. And they gave one up, so no, I didn't really think of that when I put together the grade.
Okay. Let's see here. Because we have to... All right, let's... Okay, one more question before we go into the undrafted free agent territory, and I'll just run through names, and it'll be fun.
Sure.
Ron wants to know, the Bills put a special emphasis on taking guys from, quote, winning programs. Did the Bills pass over great prospects from less than stellar programs in favor from guys from good programs? Do you think they left talent on the table to go from the guy from Alabama as opposed to the guy from Alabama State, which is what they did when they went to get Alex Carrington a few years ago?
Yeah, I'm trying to think who they may have passed up in this draft that I would have really
It's a very tough question because you could be talking about prospects and you could be talking about programs. The Bills mentioned it several times in the post-draft press conferences that they wanted guys from winning programs.
Well, if they really wanted that, I guess they succeeded. I might question how truly winning of a program Baylor is or Miami is. I mean, those are teams that have won a lot of games. Not so much Miami anymore, but you know, did Clemson win more than 10 games? Did Louisville win more than 10, 11 games? Did they compete for a national title? No, I don't think. And, you know, but they were big school players. And if that's what they wanted to achieve, that's great. But I've never really bought into that kind of theory. You know, what one team, I want to say the Buccaneers maybe, or the Jaguars, they took all guys who were captains of their college team. It's a neat gimmick, I guess, and that's something I really buy a lot into.
Okay. So undrafted free agents. Give me one sentence on any of these guys, and you can pass if you would like.
Sure.
Damian Jacobs, defensive tackle, Florida.
Pass. It's
Jimmy
like a game show.
It is. Jimmy Gaines, linebacker from Miami.
Oh, God. Pass.
He's from the Buffalo area. He went to Canisius High School. There you go, guys.
Hey.
I know something about a draft guy. Darren Kitchens, linebacker, Florida.
God, pass.
You're doing a great job, buddy. Darius Robinson, quarterback, Clemson.
Really? He was on Clemson? There you go.
That's what Brian Galliford, editor-in-chief of BuffaloRumblings.com, wrote. Kenny Ladler, cornerback, Vanderbilt.
Okay, there's one. I was a little surprised he went undrafted.
So was Doug Marrone. He said as much today.
Oh, okay. I think Ladler flashes ability at times, and I think on a team that has questions at safety, I think he might have a good chance of sticking. I'm still not sold him with what Buffalo has at safety. Corey Graham, I don't know. You know, I think Ladler's a pretty decent player. I think he intercepted a whole lot of passes at Vanderbilt, so good kid. Talked to him a little bit at the combine. Very straightforward. Not, you know, he's not dumb. Is a quick way to put it. Solid player.
Okay. Deion Broomfield, safety, Iowa State. Got that one
Got
in your
nothing.
bag? Yeah.
Nope.
Brian Johnson, West Texas A&M linebacker.
I think I wrote a tiny little thing about him, but no, got nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple guys from the University of Buffalo. Colby Way, defensive tackle, and safety Derek Brin.
Oh, man, they didn't even get the wide receiver from Buffalo?
No. He went somewhere else. I want to say Chicago, someplace in the Midwest.
You didn't get the running back either from Buffalo? I think he's pretty good, Brandon Oliver.
I think he actually ended up in Indianapolis.
Okay. No. I mean, when you watch the Buffalo Bulls defense, all you watch is Khalil Mack, and it's easy to forget everybody else. But, I mean, I guess it stands to reason the defensive tackle kept Khalil Mack clean a little bit, so there you go. Maybe he'll do that in the NFL.
Maybe.
Yeah, sorry.
You never know.
I didn't know more about these guys, but, you know. Again, this isn't my full-time job. Those other disclaimers, blah, blah, blah.
So, just for the record, as Dan Rock pointed out in our comment section, here's the Bills' undrafted free agent crop. Ladler, flashes ability and could stick as a backup safety due to lack of depth. Everyone else, pass.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying that out of ignorance of not knowing them. So.
But that it does speak to some sort of talent level, I'm sure. Okay. So as we move to wrap up here, there's a few lingering questions in our comment sections. Crow PM asks, taking out the trading of the first round pick next year, if the Bills were drafting 4th overall, what pick what kind of grade would you give the Bills based on just the guys they got, not necessarily where they picked them or who they traded to get there?
Boy, people love and hate draft grades, man. I'll tell you what.
I am in the latter category.
Yeah, well, they're a necessary evil that got assigned to me on Thursday of the draft. Anyway,
Do your job, son.
Yeah.
So just ballpark it. I mean, it probably wouldn't be. It would probably be higher.
Probably a B, I guess, because I think Watkins can be very, very good, and I do like the ability of Cyrus Kouandjio. And after that, I thought Richardson, decent value if he can get his footwork right. Brown, like we talked about, I think is a little bit of a two-down player. So I think that's a B.
Okay.
And, draft grades. Whatever.
Hashtag fun. Schooled You asks, what was the biggest shock for you during the entire draft? I've got to guess.
Oh, your guess was the Eagles taking Marcus Smith 26th?
Definitely not my guess. My guess. I would have gone Blake Bortles, and as soon as the Blake Bortles pick came in, I'm texting Brian Galliford feverishly. It's happening. It's going to happen. They're going to trade. And then the trade came through, and I'm like, it's happening. It was fun.
Yeah, the Bortles one. I don't know if people here watch the NBA draft, but during the NBA draft, Bill Simmons just shouts out, "Whoa!" when the Cleveland Cavaliers took Anthony Bennett, #1 overall, and that's what I did when the Jaguars took Bortles. That one took me for a loop for sure. Dallas being smart and passing on Johnny Manziel, I thought was kind of surprising. The Browns picking Johnny Manziel at 22, I thought was surprising.
What do you think about the Cowboys pretty much openly stating that Manziel was the highest graded player on their board, and they're just like, yeah, we're still not going to take him?
That's bizarre. I have no idea what the Cowboys are doing, because last year, the guys over at Blogging the Boys, the Cowboys site for SB Nation, they put up the Cowboys draft board, and it had a guy higher rated than the one that they ended up picking. They were both available. Sharif Floyd was the guy that was higher rated than Travis Frederick. They passed on Floyd and took Frederick. So I have no idea what the Cowboys are ever doing. But
is that because their general manager is crazy?
Yeah, he's very crazy. But I thought it was smart to pass on Manziel, who I like. But when you're paying a quarterback that much, why take a quarterback in the first round?
Well, right. I mean, the Packers did it. I get it. The Packers knew that Brett Favre was, let's say, near the end of his career, even though it eventually kept going. But they knew they had to get a succession plan. I don't know if you're necessarily there with Tony Romo yet. Well, I mean, I don't know.
I'm not a Tony Romo fan, is all. But, I mean, you're paying him to be
exactly.
the guy. Whatever.
You're paying him to be the guy that loses games for you in the fourth quarter, right? Come on,
right.
Overused stereotypes. What kind of podcast will we be without those?
Hey.
So, next year's draft, let's look ahead just real quick. Who should we be keeping an eye on for the second round of next year's draft, because, we don't have a first-round pick? Who's going to fall but still be really good?
Well, I mean, if C.J. Spiller leaves and Fred Jackson's gone, I guess you have to look at running backs, and there's a ton of good ones next year where it looks like there's going to be Todd Gurley from Georgia. I think if he stays healthy, I think he's going to break the streak. No running backs taken in the first round. But, if the Bills are picking high in the second round in the draft next year, I think, guys like Mike Davis, the running back from South Carolina, T.J. Yeldon, the running back from Alabama, those kind of guys. There are some very good running backs in the draft next year, or there should be.
Yeah, the Bills did. There were reports that the Bills tried to trade up for Carlos Hyde in the second round. What would you have thought of that?
I think he's fine, but I wouldn't have done it with Spiller and Jackson still on the roster, just because how many carries would he have gotten as a rookie compared to what you end up giving up for him? I think running back, kind of opposite a wide receiver, you can really get a first-year impact at running back. So I like them not trading up for Carlos Hyde, who we had rated as, I think, the third best running back in the draft this year anyway. So I like them not trading more assets to get a guy like Hyde.
Mm-hmm. Van Scott just wanted you to quickly go around the AFC East and say which teams, I don't know, did the best to kind of overtake the Patriots.
Um, well, the Jets had like 12 picks, I think, and
Yeah.
it stands to reason they wouldn't whiff on all 12.
No, but
I really like.
they had an unremarkable draft, I thought. I don't know.
Well, I think their first two picks were really good. Calvin Pryor and Jason Romero are probably starters immediately for them. And if you get two starters out of your first two picks, that's about all you can ask for. Miami, I thought Juwan James was a reach in the first round. I'm trying to think who they took later in the draft, but I wasn't blown away by anything that they did. So, I think Buffalo is setting themselves up to do well, so long as EJ Manuel kind of takes that next step. And
what do you define as do well? Come on.
Complete 63% of his passes, at least twice as many touchdowns as interceptions, doesn't hurt his knee, doesn't miss any games, doesn't throw so many erratic passes, and gets Watkins for around that 1,000-yard range we talked about.
So that you just described Drew Bledsoe in 2004. It's been 10 years since the Bills had a quarterback that did anywhere near that.
Yeah, so there you go. Be Drew Bledsoe. No big deal.
Last winning season as well. Well, hopefully he's not going to be Drew Bledsoe. I mean, he can move a little bit better than that dude.
Well, we'll see with the knee stuff.
Oh, come on. Don't say that to me. Oh,
hey,
goodness.
You never know.
So if we had to say playoffs.
Oh, God.
Yes or no?
I'll say no.
Okay.
Only because two things. I'm going with Las Vegas, and they just had them so low.
Las Vegas.
Hey, man, they know more than I do, usually.
Yeah, well, they're basing it off of who's going to bet, and everyone hates Buffalo, so they know people are going to underbet them anyways.
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I think they're going to be in the mix for the second place in the East.
Okay,
Whether
so
or not that'll be good enough for the playoffs, I don't know.
So I was going to just go give you the over-under of 8.5 wins. Would you take the over or the under?
I would take the under.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. Sorry.
I don't blame you at all. You don't have to apologize to me.
I was apologizing to the Bills Mafia so they don't come kill me.
Hashtag Bills Mafia.
That's right.
I'm sure we got some Mafia members listening and watching. Well, thank you very much, Dan Kadar from SBNation.com. You can follow him on Twitter at MockingTheDraft, and I'm sure that, they do. I know they already have their 2015 mock draft out, but it's only the first round, so we haven't linked it yet because the Bills don't have a 2015 first-round pick. When he puts out his first two-round mock draft, we'll link to it. Okay, Dan?
Deal. We'll get there eventually.
I'm sure you will. Thanks again for joining us tonight, and hey, we made it through this podcast without having any technical difficulties. Good for us, right?
How about that? Hey. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Have a good one.
You too.